ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights and authenticity.
Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's Defence Minister tells ASEAN counterparts that New Delhi is committed to freedom of navigation and unimpeded lawful commerce in international waters. Israel claims to have found Hamas weapons in Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. Biden says Israeli operation might stop when Hamas loses capacity to murder people. And European Union proposes a ban on imports of diamonds and liquid petroleum gas from Russia in the latest sanctions against Moscow. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has stressed that dialogue and diplomacy are the way forward for global peace and stability. Expressing concern over the conflicts, he said conflicts not only destroy livelihoods but also adversely affect food and energy security. Rajnath Singh attended the 10th ASEAN Defence Ministers Meeting Plus in Jakarta, Indonesia on Thursday. During his address, the minister affirmed the ASEAN centrality. He appreciated its role in prompting dialogue and consensus in the region. He also reiterated India's commitment to freedom of navigation, overflight and unimpeded lawful commerce in international waters in accordance with international laws, including the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea 1982. The minister called for regional security initiatives that are consultative and development-oriented in order to reflect the larger consensus among various stakeholders. He committed to nurturing practical, forward-looking and result-oriented cooperation with the ADMM Plus to enhance maritime security in the region. Minister Singh reiterated India's commitment to work with ASEAN countries for ensuring peace, prosperity and security. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has underlined the importance of dialogue and diplomacy for ensuring peace and stability in the world. He was speaking in Jakarta at the ASEAN Defence Ministers Meeting Plus, in which India is participating as a dialogue partner. DD India's Patrick Falk reports.
Speaking before the defence ministers of ASEAN, Rajnath Singh talked about the importance of engagement and dialogue and also said that India is committed to freedom of navigation, overflight and unimpeded commerce in international waters in line with global norms. There was no mention of China, but there was no doubt a reference to China's growing military assertiveness in the South China Sea. These would have been welcome words for the Philippines in particular, which has been embroiled in several testy confrontations with China over territorial disputes in recent days. India is participating in Jakarta as a dialogue partner. It is an opportunity for it to deepen security ties with ASEAN member nations, and reports say that Singh will meet with the defense chief of Vietnam and that the two sides will aim to deepen security ties, and that India may also share Brahma and Akash air defense missiles with the Southeast Asian nations. In addition, reports say that there will be a meeting with Indonesian Defence Minister Prabowo Subianto, and that the two will be discussing joint patrols of the Malacca Straits. That's important in particular because Prabowo Subianto is currently the front runner in polls for Indonesia's presidential race. There is talk about a Quad Plus grouping to include Indonesia as well. And if Prabowo Subianto does become Indonesia's next leader, it is likely that he will be the one who decides on whether or not to sign off on that.
Indonesia officially handed over the chairmanship of the ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting to Laos on Thursday. The bloc is currently holding its Defence Ministers meeting in Jakarta. Representatives from non-ASEAN countries such as China and South Korea also attended the summit. Moving on, Israel's President Isaac Herzog has said that a very strong force may be needed to remain in Gaza in the near future to prevent the Hamas from re-emerging after the conflict. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has said that he had made it clear to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that a two-state solution was the only way to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and that occupying Gaza would be a quote-unquote big mistake. Israeli military chief Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari confirmed that the Israeli troops found weapons, combat gear and technological equipment inside the Al-Shifa hospital.
In the hospital, we have found weapons, intelligence, military technology and military equipment. Additionally, an operational command center and technological assets belonging to Hamas. The technology and the materials have been sent to intelligence for inspection and review.
Israel claims that its fighter jets struck top Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh's house in Gaza. It says that Haniyeh's house was being used as a terrorist infrastructure and that it often served as a meeting point for Hamas's senior leaders to direct terror attacks against Israeli citizens, civilians and soldiers alike. Haniyeh, who is Hamas's political bureau chief, is currently living in Qatar. Six injured people were rushed to a hospital in Jerusalem after three suspected Palestinian attackers fired at a checkpoint between Jerusalem and the West Bank city. Israel's ambulance service said that one person was critically injured, but no casualties were reported as yet. The Israeli authorities claim the three terrorists who came in a suspicious vehicle and opened fire were neutralized by security forces stationed at the crossing. In other news, the European Commission has proposed a ban on imports of diamonds and liquid petroleum gas from Russia in the latest sanctions on Moscow. They are also set to place a price cap on crude oil. The bloc will discuss this 12th sanctions package also, which contains a ban on the transit of goods through Russia and technologies that could boost the country's industrial capabilities. Ban on import of certain metals are also under consideration. An agreement on the final package is expected to take weeks, as a deal will require unanimous backing of all 27 EU member states. In response to these sanctions, Russia says that sanctions was part of a hybrid war influenced by the West.
This
is not just a package, it's a hybrid war. You need to understand this. Essentially, because of the never-ending flow of sanctions, Washington is using these sanctions for its anti-Russian policy without even asking Brussels or the people of these European countries if it's in their interest and whether it contradicts their aim and goals.
And DD India's Alex Carrier sent us this report from Brussels. Take a look.
From the EU officials I've spoken to about this round of sanctions is very clear. It's the fact that they want to prevent Russia from being able to finance its invasion of Ukraine. And to the point made by the Russian officials about a hybrid war, the EU officials are very clear. These sanctions did not exist and were not put in place before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That was the cause of all of this pushback from the European Union. The goal, as I mentioned, is to reduce Russia's ability to finance that invasion. $4.5 billion will be wiped off the Russian economy from that diamond ban. So that will be the ban of the sale of all diamonds, rough or in jewelry, across the European Union. That is a huge market for those diamonds coming out of the mines in Siberia. The reason it took so long is because Belgium, right here in Belgium, has one of the world's biggest diamond hubs in Antwerp, about an hour from where I'm speaking to you from. So that was the reason why there was a bit of a delay. Belgium is now on board. These proposals will go to the member states. They will discuss them for the first time tomorrow to go through the detail, cross the T's, dot the I's, and then these sanctions will be signed off by the leaders in mid-December. The other point of this 12th round of sanction is really tightening the screws and closing the loopholes that were left from the 11 first rounds of sanctions. So avoiding circumvention will be the big focus. So, for example, countries near Russia that are importing goods and then illegally sending them to Russia, things like that will be tightened. We know that the oil price cap that you mentioned capped the sale of Russian oil to anywhere in the EU to $60. That has not been easily enforceable. So again, the focus will be on closing that loophole. So very much making sure the existing sanctions have their impact, have their effect, and also that new Russian diamond ban.
In other news, the U.S. Senate has averted a partial government shutdown on Wednesday as it passed a stopgap spending bill and sent it to President Joe Biden to sign it into law before a weekend deadline. The 87-11 vote marked the end of this year's third fiscal standoff in Congress that saw lawmakers bring Washington, D.C. to the brink of defaulting on its more than $31 trillion in debt. A partial shutdown would have led to delayed salary payments to 4 million federal government employees. In October this year, India witnessed a commendable 6.21% surge in exports, reaching a substantial $33.57 billion as compared to the $31.6 billion recorded a year prior. The cumulative data for April to October 2023 reveals that merchandise exports amounted to approximately $245 billion, while the estimated value of services exported during the same period surpassed $192 billion. Positive growth was observed in 22 out of the 30 key sectors contributing to merchandise exports in October. Moving on, German authorities are conducting nationwide searches of 54 locations across 7 federal states related to the Hezbollah-backed Islamic Center in Hamburg. The Islamic Center of Hamburg is under suspicion of supporting the Hezbollah and acting against a constitutional order. As reported by the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran has successfully enriched uranium to a level near that needed for a nuclear weapon. The nation has shown resistance to providing essential cooperation to the agency, creating challenges for global authorities. The stockpile of highly enriched uranium has increased, but the rate at which Iran is enriching this material has slowed, potentially due to negotiations with the United States. The number of uranium enriching centrifuges has remained unchanged, though, contributing further to escalating tensions between Iran and the international community. Now take a look at some more stories making news around the world. Argentina's Peronist economy minister Sergio Massa may pull off the presidential election despite being at the helm of the country's worst economic crisis in decades and with inflation nearing 150%. He stood first in the Argentina's first round vote in October and is neck and neck with libertarian rival Javier Milei ahead of Sunday's runoff. British luxury label Burberry will struggle to meet its annual revenue forecast of low double-digit growth after a global slowdown in luxury spending. Rising inflation and economic uncertainty have curbed shoppers' appetite for luxury after years of blockbuster demand, prompting investors to trim forecasts. Mind-altering substances, more commonly associated with the hippie movement of the 1960s, are now helping Swedish scientists unlock the mysteries of the brain. Scientists have been exploring the effects of psychedelics and amphetamines on rats' brain activity in experiments that could help to explore where consciousness starts in the brain and provide clues to treat neurological disorders. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Myanmar's junta says it is facing heavy assault from insurgents in 3 states. And Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is under pressure to resign because of a dip in his popularity. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The Wednesday meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Joe Biden in San Francisco plays a pivotal role in enhancing mutual trust, reconciling differences, and fostering cooperation between the two superpowers. Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed to open a presidential hotline and resume military-to-military communications, showing tangible progress in their first face-to-face talks in a year. DD India's Ira Spitzer has more from the summit location in San Francisco.
This highly anticipated meeting between the two leaders of the world's largest economies has wrapped up here on the sidelines of the APEC summit in San Francisco. Now, this meeting took place at a location about an hour's drive south of the city, and Presidents Biden and Xi spent about 4 hours together. The meeting included a working lunch followed by a walk in the gardens of this palatial estate where the meeting was being held. Now, expectations were somewhat low going in as far as at least having any major announcements on some of the big areas of disagreement between the two countries, including the U.S. and China's position on the island of Taiwan, which China claims as its own territory, as well as the conflict in Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East. So we didn't see any major breakthroughs on those issues, although the two sides did discuss that. Where we did see some progress, perhaps the biggest outcome of the meeting was the resumption of military-to-military communications between the two countries. Those communications had essentially been cut off from the Chinese side after a series of disagreements, including the visit by then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan last year. So essentially, at that point, there was no one that the U.S. could call in order to manage anything with the Chinese military. So that raised concerns about the competition veering into conflict, as the Biden administration likes to describe it. So that's one big outcome. And the other big outcome from the U.S. side was an agreement to work with the Chinese government to limit Chinese firms who are involved in the production of fentanyl components. Fentanyl is the powerful synthetic opioid, which has been largely responsible for the major overdose crisis here in the United States. So another potentially important agreement there. But certainly just the fact that these two countries are meeting at all, given the amount of tension in the relationship, as seen as a victory, but perhaps no major developments in some of these global conflicts where both countries play a major role. Ira Spitzer reporting for DD India at the APEC Summit in San Francisco.
Addressing a press conference after the meeting, President Biden said that the two leaders also spoke about the Israel-Hamas conflict. He said Hamas committed war crimes by having terrorist headquarters inside a hospital. Biden stressed that Israeli operations will stop when the Hamas no longer has the ability to do horrific things to Israelis.
The first war crime is being committed by Hamas by having their headquarters, their military, hidden under a hospital. And that's a fact. That's what's happened. Israel did not go in with a large number of troops, did not raid, did not rush everything down. They've gone in, and they've gone in with their soldiers carrying weapons or guns. I think it's going to stop when Hamas no longer maintains the capacity to murder and abuse and just do horrific things to the Israelis.
Earlier at the meeting, Xi Jinping called the U.S.-China relationship the most important bilateral relationship in the world and said that he and Biden shoulder heavy responsibilities for the world and for history.
The China-U.S. relationship, which is the most important bilateral relationship in the world, should be perceived and envisioned in a broad context of the accelerating global transformations unseen in a century. It should develop in a way that benefits our two peoples and fulfills our responsibility for human progress. China-U.S. relationship has never been smooth sailing over the past 50 years or more, and it always faces problems of one kind or another. Yet it has kept moving forward amid twists and turns. For two large countries like China and the United States, turning their back on each other is not an option.
President Joe Biden referred to Chinese President Xi Jinping as a dictator. Biden's remark at the end of his meeting with Xi Jinping came after he was asked if he still considers Xi as a dictator.
We're talking to our competitors, and the key and just talking, just made blunt with one another, so there's no misunderstanding, as a key element to maintaining global stability and delivering for the American people. Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that's based on a form of government totally different than ours.
Now, Biden's remark risks derailing progress made at the talks, with China now hitting back at the U.S. president, calling his remark irresponsible.
This kind of statement is extremely incorrect and irresponsible political manipulation which China opposes. It needs to be pointed out that there are always some ill-intentioned individuals attempting to damage Sino-US relations, but their attempts will not succeed.
Moving on, Ukraine destroyed 16 drones and 1 missile which were launched by Russia in an overnight strike. Ukrainian forces deployed air defenses in the western region of the country, while an air raid alert was also declared in several regions. Kyiv has also accused Russia of targeted shelling at a power station in the eastern Donetsk region. UK's new Foreign Secretary David Cameron arrived in Kyiv on his first working visit abroad after taking charge. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky received the UK Foreign Secretary. The two discussed the supply of weapons and ways to further strengthen air defense systems, and also ways to protect Ukrainians and their critical infrastructure. Later, Cameron held an unanticipated meeting with Ukraine's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, demonstrating solidarity as Ukraine vigilantly monitors any indication of diminishing Western military and financial aid following the less-than-expected success of its counter-offensive against the Russian forces. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is under pressure to resign or be forced out of the Liberal Party leadership because of his declining popularity in opinion polls. Even members of his own political party are calling on Justin Trudeau to resign as he's polling poorly, and the public is furious about housing and inflation. With his popularity dwindling and citizens dissatisfied with housing and inflation, Trudeau is facing calls to resign from his own party. A delegation from Oslo Metropolitan University in Norway is visiting India for the educational exchange program, under which they are visiting educational institutions to observe the functioning and the changes India is doing to enhance its educational ecosystem. DD India's Kriti Vadhera reports.
24 delegates from Oslo Metropolitan University, Norway, visited Central Institute of Educational Technology in New Delhi as part of their study tour. This delegation includes 19 pre-service teachers with their professors. These pre-service teachers were keen to know the functioning of Indian education system. Key areas of their exploration involved research and development, training of teachers at pre-service and in-service level.
It's a very, very good experience to be in India, and we've been coming with students for many years. So our focus in India is to learn about Indian culture, different religions, and also here in Delhi we want to learn more about the education system. We are of course interested in reforms, curricula, what the debates are, and so on.
The keenness to experience the virtual reality labs filled the delegates with enthusiasm. These augmented reality labs are used by teachers for their lesson plans.
It was very inspiring to see that they have different techniques and resources here, and how they accommodate learning and teaching for those who have special needs.
It's been a very good experience. We tried the virtual learning glasses, so it's been a very good experience to take back home to Norway.
It has been very educational and very fun to see the differences and the similarities between the curriculum in Norway and India. So it's been very fun and very educational.
India has seen revolutionary changes in terms of digitalization of education with the implementation of New Education Policy 2020. And the Global Fraternity of Education is praising these digital changes in India. With camera person Ashish Sharma, I'm Kriti Vadhera reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
To celebrate the contribution and achievements of fishers and fish farming and other stakeholders, the Government of India is organizing the Global Fisheries Conference India 2023. The two-day event will be held on the 21st and 22nd of November in India's western state of Gujarat. DD India's Siddharth Bharadwaj reports.
India has more than 7,500 kilometers of coastal line, and fisheries contributes an important part of the economies of coastal areas. It also contributes to the overall GDP of the nation. With an aim to provide a platform to various stakeholders and investors on a global level, Indian government is hosting Global Fisheries Conference India 2023. Indian government has said that as a result of the schemes initiated in the last 9 years, the fish production has increased manifold.
Internationally, उसमें क्या संभावनाएं हैं, क्या चैलेंजेस हैं, उन सभी का मंथन करने के लिए ये वर्ल्ड लेवल का एक ग्लोबल कॉन्फ्रेंस और वर्ल्ड फिशरीज डे के मनाने के उपक्रम में उसी प्रकार से मनाने का निर्णय लिया है.
Further, the Indian government is confident that this conference will provide many benefits to stakeholders and investors and will bring them under one roof.
Fisheries department and this fisheries sector is growing. Same time, we are concerned about the sustainability also. Because of the sustainability, fish ranching is the major and inclusion of new technology. There is business to business meetings are there, bilateral meetings are there, and you can enter the business collaborations and technical exchanges.
Fisheries sector in India contributes a lot to the Indian economy. India's third largest fish producing and second largest aquaculture producing nation in the world. Various initiatives taken by the government like the Blue Revolution has given a big boost to this sector. The Global Fisheries Conference India 2023 promises an enriching blend of knowledge sharing, networking and actionable insight in fisheries and aquaculture and its way forward.
Global Fisheries Conference India 2023 will provide a common platform to various stakeholders from around the world, and about 5,000 people are expected to attend the event. The fisheries sector plays a significant role in India's economy. and it also provides livelihood to millions of fish farmers. With camera person Gopal, this is Siddharth for DD India, New Delhi.
And in Cricket World Cup news, South Africa is all out for 212 runs. The Proteas were in trouble right from the beginning. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.